Hello everyone and welcome to this tutorial. Today we're going to be making Stewie Griffin from Family Guy, or well, at least we're going to be making his face today, the foundation, with a very smooth start, right? So later we can add details, eyelids, eyebrows, the hairs, the eyes and shape keys to control facial expressions. But first, about 90% of you are not subscribed yet, so if you want to keep up with what I do, the other parts of this tutorial, subscribe, please leave a like, a comment as well, it would make me incredibly happy, and let's get into Blender. Right, in Blender we're actually going to keep our trusty friend, but we're going to add a subdivision modifier, right? Just add that and set it to like 3, we can change that later, doesn't matter that much. And this is our starting point. Whenever we're making characters, cartoon characters, whatever, I prefer starting with as a little geometry as possible, and we'll work our way up from there. Alright, so let's actually get a reference image in here, because that may help us out a lot. So press Shift A, image, a reference, and I have mine saved at the downloads, and it is called, I have absolutely no clue. Let's see, let's order this by the modified date. Is it not here? There it is. Wrong way. There we go. This is what I will be working with, at least for now. Alright, whenever you add a reference image in your camera angle, your viewport, and rotation is not completely straight, your image will be added perpendicular to the camera, which means it will copy those rotations, which is annoying. I'm just going to set this back to 0, 90 I guess, and X 90 as well. There we go. Now it's nice and straight. So this is our reference image, and let's just get started on creating the head. The head is, in my opinion, usually the hardest part. That and the hands. Hands are always difficult. So let's think about how realistic we actually want to make this. All right, 2D characters are not made to be made in 3D. They are 2D. The proportions are generally a little bit odd, and well, they don't have to think about 3D that much, but now we do. Right, so we need to think ahead a little bit in how we're going to create this character. So the head, let's just start off with that. It is basically like a like a football kind of shape, the American football, and we're just going to make that. But to start this off, I'm gonna add, press Tab, Edit Mode, Ctrl R, an edge loop in the middle. Left click, Escape. Now we've got our edge loop. Let's press Alt Z to go into X-ray. And let's just box select the right part here, delete vertices. Alright, the reason why is because I'm gonna work with a modifier and a mirror. There we go. This mirror modifier is used because we wanna create efficient stuff. So we're gonna be creating half of the face of Stewie, and the other half will be mirrored, right? Just saves us a little bit of time. Now we need this in the Y-axis because I'm working in the Y-axis for some reason, doesn't matter. And so now we can start working. So press Tab. We're going to press 1, that is basically the vertex select mode in edit mode, and just select those left vertices. Let's move this to the left a little bit. You can lock that by pressing Y to the Y-axis. Scale this down, and let's just try to recreate the shape of the head. Alright, so press A, S, Z, just scale everything in the Z-axis a little bit there. I want a bit more rounding. You can see this is nice and round, and for us it is well, it's not the right shape, so I'm gonna press Ctrl R and add an edge loop there. Move that to the left a little bit and just scale that up a bit. Something like this. Let's press GY, move that even more to the side. S to scale. There we go. Press A, S, Z. And now just get it into the right height pretty much. There we go. Now the sides look alright. Let's just press SX, just scale that up a little bit in the sides as well. There we go. That's looking fine, I guess. Something we can at least start to work with. Now, right mouse and shade that smooth. There we go. And now we have to worry about those details. And for starters, the ears, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. Right, the hairs and the eyebrows. We'll do that later. Those are basically just lines. So we'll be able to add that later quite easily. Let's start with the ears. The ears aren't that hard in this case because they are exactly at those endpoints of the ears, which is beautiful. Let's press Alt Z. Because we have a nice looking square there at the end. And you all know, if we subdivide a square, it is basically a circle. So we can work with that square. So let's go to front view and let's try to recreate this ear a little bit. Okay, so press E and just extrude that out a little bit, right? I want a hard connection. And let's press R and Z and just rotate that a little bit sideways, right? The ears need to be pointed a little bit forwards to just catch all of the sound from front facing as well. So we're gonna make that. Let's press GY, move that a little bit more to the side. Don't worry about this geometry going crazy yet, because we extrude this more anyway. There we go. And let's press E one more time. There we go. And we are mirroring it 2 axes. That is why this weird looking clipping is going on. So just deselect X and scale this up a little bit now. There we go. And let's press E once again. There we go. Now let's press I to inset that and press G to just move that out a little bit there. Press I to inset once again. And let's press E to extrude that inwards to the ear a little bit. There we go. Now press I one more time. There we go. To the right by dragging with G. And then just E once again to extrude that inwards a little bit. Right, that's going to be the ear hole pretty much. There we go. Now we can tweak some things by pressing 2, edge select, double clicking on this edge to select the loop. Press double G, move that out a little bit. Double click on that one, double G, move it out a little bit as well. You can make some nice changes to that ear if you want to. Alright, same thing for this front part. If we think this is looking a little bit too thick, we can just move that by G to the left a little bit. Double click on this one, scale that down a little bit perhaps. Same for that one. Scale it down just a little bit so that connection is more clear. We can even move this up or down depending on what you are looking for. There we go. Move this to the side a little bit. I think this is all right for now. All right, let's make it a little bit bigger though. So press Tab, Alt Z, 1, and just box select the entire ear there and scale it up. Make sure everything is selected. Scale that up a little bit. And let's rotate everything a little bit more so we can see it better from the front view. Just like that. I think that is looking fine for our cartoon character ear. We can tweak that later in sculpt mode if we really want to. Alright, for the eyes, let's get started on that. They are nice and round, but also very cartoony. So we have to worry a little bit about the shape there. Well, it isn't really going to be that much of an issue because we are working with circles. So all we need is a square, one square that will turn into a circle. Okay? So we have 2 square, quads to work with. We have this one right there at the side of the face, and we have this one at the inner part. So we are going to have to find a way to make one of these faces into a square we can use for the eye. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, the eye is going to be right about there, so it's going to overlap 2 faces, which is a little bit annoying. So what I'm gonna do is just press 2, double click on this edge loop, so this one is completely selected. And I'm gonna press double G to just move that to the left a little bit, and then I'm just gonna scale that up a little bit more there. Something like this. Right, and we can always scale this middle part up a little bit more if we think that's needed. There we go. I think we have the shape about right. Now I'm gonna work with this face, so select it with 3. That is the face select mode. Press I to inset that, and just go to Edit in your right window there. Loop Tools, Circle. That will turn your face into a nice looking square. Alright, now if you don't have the loop tools selected, if you don't have that little edit box on the right, go to Edit, go to Preferences. You can go to, I don't think you can see this pop-up window, but basically you go to Add-ons and then just look for Loop Tools. And it should be included in Blender by default. It also just enable that Mesh Loop Tools and then just save your preferences at the bottom. And now you will have the same little button on the right there. Alright, so let's just scale this down and rotate it a little bit, move it to the left a little bit there, scale it down a bit more. Now you may notice that we get some shading issues, and that is because we now have a little bit of a weird shading going on. But it doesn't matter at all. Okay, just don't think about those fine details just yet. We can just fix that up later. Right now we are worried about making those eyes. Alright, so let's just see this from the top view a little bit. Let's just rotate that a little bit around the z-axis so it just matches a little bit more with the face. And now let's just I to inset that. There we go. And let's just press G and X to move that out a little bit, and GY there. Let's press I to inset this one more time. There we go. Let's press I one more time to insert it once again. And then press E to extrude that inwards, nice and deep. There we go. Now we have a nice looking eye socket. Alright, so to smoothen that out a little bit more, we can just press 2 edge select mode. And then just press, for example, this edge, double G, move that in a little bit there. We can do the same thing with this one. And then just press double G to move that in a little bit. And then everything will be a bit more rounded. We can even scale this down a little bit. There we go. So we have at least some kind of an, what is it called? Like the eyelid thickness around your eyes. I'm not sure what it's called, but you know, it works. And well, if you want to tweak those eyes now, we can just go to sculpt mode and press G. And just hit Y there, just so we have that Y symmetry in sculpt mode. It doesn't really matter, we have a mirror modifier, so we might as well just check that off. But now we can just move this a little bit to, well, where we want. Right, we can see we can tweak the eye sockets if we wanna tweak that. But for now I think we're looking kind of okay. Alright, for the nose, this is the point where we have to think really hard. Alright, we have geometry, but we don't have a lot. Right, we have geometry for the eye, but for the nose we only have one face. And if we add edge loops, it is going to look weird. We get squares, stuff like that, and we don't want that. So what I'm going to do is what I do usually when I need more geometry, but I don't want to mess up the shape. And that is just set this subdivision to 1. There we go. And I'm just going to apply the mirror and the 1 level subdivisions there. And then I'm just going to hit tab and just find out what my geometry looks like now. Right, so this is basically the same shape. So if we add a subdivision modifier that is level 2, we get the exact same results. Okay, except now we have more geometry that we can actually work with, which is something that is very nice. And we can now think about this nose, right? So where would the nose be? It starts at around halfway of the eyes. And I'm sorry, by the way, if I sound a little bit like I have the flu, cold, because I think I do actually. It started just now, so excuse me for that. I hope it is still okay. And we can just select those 2 faces, because this is what we're going to work with for the nose. And we can basically just press I to inset this once or extrude this right away. Let's see how this looks. Yeah, we can just extrude this like that. Let's go to side view, append 1, and let's just see what happens. I'm gonna press Ctrl Z because there's one thing I want to do first. I'm gonna inset this entire face. There we go. And I'm gonna move this part up. Double G, move that up. There we go. And I'm gonna try to get these 2 faces into the actual shape that I want to extrude the nose with. Alright, so I'm gonna move this up, double G, I move this up, double G, just a little bit, by the way, just a little bit. I'm gonna move these 3 faces up a little bit. Let's see, double G should work. Alright, then move this one down, there we go. And let's just select those 2 faces, go to side view, move them out a little bit already, and extrude it. There we go. Alright, so once we extrude that, let's see, this is not looking that great. Let's Ctrl Z this, and let's actually move these 2 vertices in, so SY, and just scale that in a little bit. Same for this one, it's quite a wide nose to start off with. There we go. Let's move this out a little bit. And I'm actually going to press SX0. That way, all the faces we have selected, the vertices, they will be scaled to 0 in the x-axis. I hit my mic. And they will basically become like a straight line, right? Which is beautiful. And now I'm actually going to rotate that a little bit like that, so it actually gets the shape of a nose. And there we go. And I'm going to press Ctrl R and actually add another edge loop in here. Okay, just so we have another edge to work with on the bottom. Select this bottom vertex, press G, and Z, move that up a little bit. There we go. And let's just move all of these down a little bit. And these two down. S, Y, scale that up a little bit. There we go. Let's scale these and these in a little bit in the Y axis. There we go. And well, that is looking better. Let's select these two and press double G. Move them down a little bit. And press S, Y. And just scale it down. Just so we have a little bit of an angle going on in that nose. Looking quite alright. Now, I'm going to select this one, press G and X. Just move that out a little bit so it gets more rounded. And well, there we go. I think for now this looks fine for a nose. Okay, now let's press object mode and turn that into skull mode. Because this is where I want to make some tweaks. We have some geometry now to make things more smooth and stuff like that. And now I'm actually going to turn on that Y symmetry there. Because we do now have an applied mirror modifier. So we need to worry about the mirror. Alright, so let's actually go to top view and see what we need to smoothen out. I'm going to press G for the drag tool. And I'm just going to try and drag some parts of the mesh out a little bit. Just to make this look more smooth. Right, get rid of those bumps that we created when we made those eyes, for example, because we made some new edge loops, right? So we have some new geometry. All right, so that's looking fine. I'm going to drag the entire nose up a little bit, I think. Just drag that up like this. Let's see. Yeah, the mouth still needs to be below that as well. So let's drag all of this up a little bit. You see how easy it is to still tweak this geometry, right? Which is quite nice. Something like that. And let's see. I'm going to rotate my screen just so we see what the shape of our head is right now. Alright, I want to have this nice and smooth. The eyes stick out a little bit too much here, for example. I want to keep this nice and rounded. So I'm going to try and just turn that back to a rounded shape. Alright, you can see that you don't have to worry that much yet about those weird shapes. In edit mode, we will be able to tweak them in sculpt mode quite easily. Alright, so for starters, I think we have the shape nailed. Right, so let's worry about this mouth, okay? Mouths are generally, well, they're not that hard, but you have to worry about them a little bit because we also want to apply some shape keys, for example, to change the emotion of the face, the expression. So he has to be able to smile like he does in the image, but he also has to be sad because, well, sometimes he's a baby, right? So he cries a little bit. So we have to worry about that. Okay, so let's see in edit mode. How are we going to add a mouth to this shape? Let's see. We want to turn it, for starters, into like a little line, a neutral looking mouth. Okay, so we have a few faces that we can work with. We have these two. Which is, it is nice for starters, some nice geometry, but what I really want is faces that look a little bit more wide and stretched, okay? So I'm not going to do that to this because this is also what controls the bottom part of the nose, right? So we need to be able to hold, to remain those those top vertices of these faces. So first of all, I'm just going to inset this, right? Just so we have a new set of faces to work with that doesn't mess up those top corners there and those bottom. Right, I'm going to press 1 and what I'm going to do, let's see. I'm going to enable Y symmetry in edit mode. I don't think you already have that, so enable that. And now if I move this vertex, the right one will move with it and we don't have to apply another mirror modifier just yet. So select this one, press double G, just move that to the side a little bit. Alright, so we can have a little bit of a wider expression. Double G on that inner one, move that there as well. And let's just move this one down, GZ, and this one that's hidden there, GZ as well. Right, there we go. So now you can see we have at least some kind of a face, some kind of a geometry that we can actually work with. Okay, so I'm going to turn this a bit more into a rectangle, into a square. So to do that, I'm going to move this more to the left, this more to the top. And well, now we already see that we have this nice looking square that appears, right? We may have to tweak some of the geometry to make it look more rounded, of course, but that's going to be all right. So I'm going to press double G on this one. We can move this to the side. Let's move this a bit more there. And we can actually move this one a bit more to the side as well. Let's see there. All right. Now let's first go to sculpt mode. No, actually just make the mouth first. All right, so select these two faces and let's see this in side view. There's GX and SX0, right? SX0 works quite nice in these ways because we can just get a fresh start, right? We don't have any angles to worry about. These faces are nice and straight. So in front view, it is a very, very nice starting point for a mouth. Okay, so let's scale this up just a little bit. Press G and X, move that a little bit in. S, Y, scale that in a little bit so we get a bit smoother there. And this is going to be our starting point for the face. All right, so we need some geometry to make this curl, to make the shape bend, for example. And well, we don't have that from the start because we only have two faces now. So we can make it like angle a bit, or we can make one corner of the mouth move up a little bit, but we can't really get crazy with the mouth. But I think it's fine for now because we may just apply a subdivision level at some point when we need it. Let's see about that. Okay, so let's press I to inset this, and there we go. And I'm going to press G and X to move that out a little bit so we get a rounding. Press I to insert this once again. There we go. And let's just press G and X to move that in a little bit there. Okay. Now press S and Z to scale all of this more together. Okay. Now press S and X and 0 once again. And let's press R and Y to rotate this a little bit more to like the actual angle of the mouth. Like this. Okay, beautiful. Alright, I'm gonna press 1 and GG this, double G, to move this in more, right? So this is going to be the actual hole that we can create in the mouth. So we can keep that nice and neutral face, but we still have like a hole that goes into the mouth so we can actually open it later. So this is the point where we go into side view, press Alt Z to turn on X-ray, and we're going to extrude this in just like that a little bit. So you can think of this as the thickness of the lips, for example, and the teeth, and move that in a little bit. We can even press SZ, scale that up a little bit there. And now we can just extrude this, right? And we can make the inner part of the mouth, okay? For characters, when you animate it, the mouth has to open, has to be able to speak. There will be a tongue in there, teeth, stuff like that. But you also need a throat, so you don't actually see like the back of your throat, the back of your mouth, right? There has to be like a hole that goes down, so you can actually think that Stewie is able to eat, for example. So we need to create that. So we're gonna scale this up and only the Z-axis for now, like that. So this is going to be like where the your mouth goes behind the teeth. Press E, SZ. There we go. Now we can E this one more time, rotate this a little bit. So this is the inner part of the mouth. There we go. We can scale this down a little bit again in the Z-axis. There we go. And now we can just extrude this a few more times to make this go back to the throat more, right? So I'm thinking about where the neck is going to be, which is going to be, I think, right about there. So I'm going to extrude that until we reach the bottom part of our face there. Okay, so this is basically going to be our inner part of our face, right? Which is something we just need, okay? We need it. And we tweak that later, right? Because we need it to be a little bit wider at those center parts, but we can tweak that later. Right, for now, we have a nice starting point for a face. Right, so let's go to sculpt mode and just tweak some of these weird artifacts there. We can hold shift, or we can just move them by hand a little bit. For example, these corners of the mouth, I want them to be a bit more inwards, so they connect more to the face. Maybe a little bit smaller there as well. And we can move this out a little bit, move this in a little bit, this out. So basically just try to smoothen out your geometry a little bit. Alright, that's basically what I'm trying to do. Right, so this is looking better, but still shows that we have some kind of a weird geometry. Okay, so I'm going to press tab, and I'm going to select this this vertex and just move that in to the x-axis more. There we go. And I'm going to press Ctrl R to just add another edge loop in here. Right, just to make sure that our nose is nice and, well, sticks out, but it doesn't affect the mesh around it too much. Alright, so that always helps nicely. And we can now just move this one out a little bit more, so we get more of a squared face there. and that is already looking much better for the geometry as well, right? So hold shift and we can now smoothen this out a little bit, at least try to. Let's move this mouth in a little bit. Let's move the entire nose in a little bit and up. Let's see. That mesh up a little bit so it smoothens out there. That's looking quite all right. And let's just move this up a little bit as well. And the mouth too, why not, right? This is where we can do our tweaking pretty much. Let's just move this now nose up a little bit and this part down so we don't have like a too crazy hook nose going on for this part yet. Alright, so let's tweak that until we get the shapes that we're looking for. Beautiful. Let's try to move this out a little bit. Let's move this in a little bit. There we go. Just make sure that you don't see all of those hard corners. Right, so now if we go to edit mode, you can see this is the geometry we work with. You can always test what the geometry is if you apply your subdivision. Right, so this will be the geometry, which is quite alright if you ask me. Okay, we got those nice, well, it is quite dense, of course, so we may just set this to 1 and work with that. If we have like a far away shot, for example, or we remesh this in the end, which is also possible. Let's see, we can make this a little bit better by selecting this vertex, moving it up, this one as well, so we get just a little bit more of a smooth mesh there. Same for this one, double G, just a little bit, by the way. It's overkill. We can just move it, doesn't matter. There we go. We can even move this one out a little bit more, like that. Not too bad. There we go. Right, now to fix these last little bit of artifacts, I'm going to go to edit mode and just figure out where they come from. Alright, so first things first, we have this edge here. And this makes up a quad, but this edge is inset a little bit, right? It isn't really a quad. So what I'm going to do is just move this one out, right? Just like that. And I'm actually going to select this entire edge loop. And we're actually going to just dissolve that. So right mouse, dissolve. We have a lot of geometry there, so you don't have to worry about that one. And now this is looking like a more healthy quad. That's already looking better for our geometry as well. And we have one edge there that is quite inside of the mesh, right? It's quite inward, so I'm going to press G and X and move that out a little bit more to follow the geometry better. There we go. Now we already have a way smoother geometry. And we can also just look from the bottom a little bit and move this entire edge out, perhaps. There we go. Maybe a little bit more. We also have to dissolve this edge, by the way, right mouse, dissolve edge. It doesn't really do that in the mirror mode, dissolving. And this is looking quite decent, like a nice starting geometry that doesn't have a lot of artifacts, right? So you can see that this is Stewie's head quite alright. We can now even move this nose a little bit more to the sides if we need that to happen. This one in, for example. Just tweak it how you like it. I think this is fine. So this has been the face tutorial for Stewie. We got the basic proportions, the basic shapes. We're going to be adding details in the next one and working on the body, connecting the two with a little neck, of course, as well. So that's what we're going to be focusing on the next one. I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you learned something. If you did, please leave a like, a comment, or subscribe. I think 90% of you guys aren't subscribed, so please do. And then I'll see you in the next parts. Have a great day.